Lesson 6C, we are finding and naming angle relationships. So we're going to continue learning about all the angle relationships there are. And then we're going to find the missing angles. Let's talk about what we learned yesterday first. We learned about angles. We drew this angle. And the definition of an angle is a combination of two rays that have a common endpoint. The rays are the sides of the angle. So we learned that the vertex is that middle point where they are joined. So in this case, point A is a vertex, and the sides are ray AB and ray AC, starting with A, because that's where the endpoint is. And there's 4 ways to name an angle. You can name it by all 3, which is angle BAC and angle CAB, or just by the vertex, but only if that angle is by itself. So this would be angle A. And if there's a whole bunch of angles involved, you can number them. So this might be like angle number 5. Okay, this is yesterday. Then we talked about the first relationship, which was adjacent angles, which means next to. So the 2 adjacent angles in this picture would be angle WXY and WYXZ. Then we talked about complementary angles, which are angles who add up to how many degrees? 90 degrees. And usually they look like this, where it's easy and they're next to each other. A plus B would make 90. But do they have to be next to each other? Nope, they don't have to. They don't have to be adjacent as long as the measures add up to 90. Okay? Then we talked about supplementary angles. That means they add up to how much? 180. And if they are adjacent and add up to 180, what's that special name? Linear pair. Very good. Linear pairs if they're adjacent and they're supplementary. But they don't have to be adjacent. If they're not, they're just called supplementary. Okay? So far so good? So today is the last relationship that we are going to learn about, called vertical angles. These are formed by intersecting lines. Go ahead and fill that in on your notes. And then this next part is not on your notes, so go ahead and just watch. I have this drawing here that I'm going to measure with a protractor, which I already did. And I found out that this was 121 degrees. This one was 59 degrees. This one was 121 degrees, and this one was 59 degrees. Do you see any pattern going on in this picture? Raise your hand if you see a pattern. Yes, it's obvious. Go ahead and tell your neighbor what that pattern is. Ready? Share. The pattern here is that this angle is the same exact measurement as this one, and this one is the same exact measurement as this one. Also, I hope some of you notice that these are made of straight lines. So 121 plus 59 is how much? 180. It made a straight line. It also makes it this way, and this way, and this way. Those are supplementary angles. So, opposite angles, which are, like I told you, this one was 121 and this one was 121. See how they're opposite from each other? Those are called vertical angles. They are congruent. They're exactly the same shape and the same measurement. So on your notes, please write in that congruent means equal in measure. If this one's 59, then this one's 59. If this one's 121, that means this one is 121. Because they're vertical. Okay? So again, those opposite angles are exactly the same shape, exactly the same measurement, so they're congruent because they are vertical angles. One is vertically on top of the other one. They're facing away from each other, not touching, totally opposite. Okay? In this same picture, there's also supplementary angles, which I just talked about. These are supplementary. This makes 180. This makes 180. And this makes 180. Those are supplementary angles. You see them? So it's in the same picture, but if we're just talking about the different angles, then there's a bunch of different relationships going on. All right. On your notes, that first picture you have there, I labeled it A, B, C, D, right? I want you to name the vertical angles. So let's start with angle A. What is angle A vertical to? Angle C. Go ahead and list that on your paper. Angle A and angle C are vertical. Do you see another pair of vertical angles? What are they? Angle B and angle D. Go ahead and mark the arcs on your drawing, on the picture, and then list it. Now, same picture, there are also adjacent angles going on. Same picture. Yesterday we learned that adjacent means right next to each other. They even share the same wall. They're right next to each other. Angle A and B are right next to each other. They are adjacent angles. So I'm going to list that under adjacent angles. Can somebody find another pair of adjacent angles? I just said A and B. Oh, A and D, yes. How about Zach?
D and C.
D and C. How about another one? There's one more. B and C. Good. A and B are adjacent. B and C are adjacent. C and D are adjacent. And then D and A are adjacent. Do you see that they're sitting right next to each other? Now, in this particular picture, those adjacent angles also happen to be supplementary. And since they are making a straight line like this, what is that special word where they are adjacent and supplementary? What's that called? Linear pair. Very good. So these are also called linear pairs. Going on to the bottom of your notes, you have two of exactly the same picture, right? You're going to fill in by drawing on those pictures. So vertical angles and supplementary angles happen in the same drawing, but we're talking about different angles, so I don't want you to get those mixed up. Vertical angles are the ones that are opposite of each other. See how they are not adjacent? This one has nothing to do with this one. They're not touching. They're exactly the same. They're vertical, but otherwise they're not touching. They're not sharing any walls. They're not adjacent. Please draw that on your paper. Draw these little arcs so that you know we're talking about this angle and this angle. Supplementary angles happen in the same shape, but they are the ones that are next to each other. They make a straight line because supplementary means it equals 180 degrees. So supplementary is this angle and this angle. See how they are adjacent? They're next to each other. So it's in the same like X drawing, right? They're still formed by intersecting lines, but vertical are the ones that are opposite from each other, and supplementary are the two that are next to each other. Okay? Supplementary angles make a straight angle. It's 180 degrees. See this straight line? Yeah? Alright, let's practice naming those relationships. So on the back of your notes there, number 1, there's a lot of angles going on, but we only care about angle A, which is this one right here, and angle B, which is this one right here. They don't share any walls. They're not next to each other. They don't equal 90 degrees. They don't equal 180 degrees. So what relationship do they have? They are vertical. They are facing opposite directions from each other. So this one has a vertical relationship. Please write vertical on your notes. Number 2, there's again a lot of angles going on, but we only care about C, which is this one, and D, which is this one. They are adjacent. They are sharing a wall, right? They are right next to each other, so it is adjacent, but there's something else that they have. They are also complementary, because if you noticed, there is this box here, which means it's 90 degrees, and it's on a straight line. 180 minus 90 makes this side also 90, so C plus D has to be 90. So this is complementary and adjacent. Number 3, we're talking about angle E and angle F. Do they add up to 90 degrees? Is there any box in the corner that you can tell? Nope. Does this make a straight line? Nope, that's a pretty bent line. So are they at least next to each other? Yeah, what is that called? Adjacent. This one only has one relationship going on. They're only adjacent. Number 4, again, lots of angles going on, but we only care about G and H. Do they make a straight line?
Yes.
What's that called?
Linear.
It's a linear pair because they're adjacent and supplementary, so that special name is linear pair. You don't have to write adjacent because linear pair already means it's adjacent. Okay, supplementary and adjacent means linear pair. Any questions about 1 through 4? Great, let's look at number 5. Even more angles going on. It's all crazy, but again, we only care about the angle A and the angle B. All of this other stuff, you can pretend it's not even there. Do they make a right angle? Do they make a straight angle? Do they share a wall? Yeah, they're next to each other. What's that called? It's adjacent. Number 6. Weird things going on here, but again, we only care about C, which is this, and D, which is this. Do they make a straight line? What's that called? Linear pair. It's supplementary, which makes it 180 degrees, and they're adjacent, so this one's linear pair. Number 7. First, look at this box here. What does that mean? This is 90 degrees, right? And it's vertical to this side, which means this side is also 90 degrees. But that 90 degrees that I just wrote is split by E and F, right? So E plus F has to be 90. And what is that called when they equal 90 together? Complementary. And they're also right next to each other. So what are the two answers to this one? They're adjacent and complementary. Now that last one, lots going on, but we only care about G and H. They are facing away from each other. They're opposites. What's that called? Vertical. Now let's talk about finding missing angles. First of all, I want to know what is the relationship these angles have. They're complementary, very good, because this little box in the corner tells you that it's 90 degrees. This whole thing's 90, so I want you to write complementary. Write complementary. Now, the whole thing is 90. Part of it's 52, and the other part is A. How much would the measure of angle A be? How'd you get 38? You do 90 minus 52, which is 38. Now, the correct way to write your answer, and I need you to do this on your homework as well, is the measure of angle A equals 38 degrees. So on your homework, I would like to see complementary and that the measure of whatever angle is the degrees. Measure of angle A is 38 degrees. Go ahead and do number 10 and 11 on your own. Tell me the relationship and what the missing angle is. What relationship does number 10 have? Good, they're complementary. And the measure of angle A is? Measure of angle A is? 17 degrees. Very good. Don't forget the little circle that means degrees. Number 11, what relationship does that one have? Still complementary. And then go ahead and say your answer as well. Measure of angle B equals 75 degrees. Questions about these? Okay, let's do the next set. Number 12, these are supplementary angles because D plus 140 makes this straight angle, which is 180 degrees. So if the whole thing's 180, part of it's 140, what would the other part be? 40, you would subtract. 180 minus 140 is 40. So you would write supplementary and then measure of angle D equals 40 degrees. Go ahead and do 13 and 14 on your own. Number 13, what's the relationship? Supplementary or linear pair. And what is the measure of angle C? 58 degrees. Very good. How about 14? What's the relationship? It's still supplementary or linear pair. And the measure of angle D equals 46 degrees. 15. This is what we learned today. We have 65 here, and it's opposite of angle E. What is that relationship called? Good. This is vertical. Please write vertical. C-A-L, vertical, not C-L-E. So vertical angles are congruent. They're equal in measure. So if this one is 65, then this one is 65. Measure of angle E equals 65. Go ahead and quickly do 16 and 17. It should take you just a few seconds. 16 has what relationship? Vertical. What is the measure of angle E? 39 degrees. 17 has what relationship? Vertical. And then please read your answer to me. The measure to number 17. The measure of angle F equals 114 degrees. Don't forget the little circle at the end. Any questions about vertical angles? Okay, this last part on your notes is going to put everything you learned all together into one problem. So I gave you only one angle. You now have all the knowledge and skills to figure out what all the other angles are without measuring it with a protractor. Okay, so I'm going to do this first one with you. The easiest thing to spot first is that 50 degrees is right here, and it's vertical to angle A, which means angle A must be how many degrees? 50. Go ahead and label it 50 degrees. Now, looking at this line right here, see it's a straight line? I'm going to ignore all of this right now and then redraw this so you can see it better. This is B, this is 50. If it's a straight line, how many degrees is that whole thing? 180. Part of it's 50. What's the other part? What's B going to have to be? 130. So we said this was 50. This is 130. Now 130 is vertical to C, which means C has to be how many degrees? 130. Again, 50 degrees is vertical to angle A. So A is 50 degrees. 50 and B make supplementary angles, which means 180 minus 50 makes B. The measure of angle B is 130 degrees. Now that 130 degrees we just found is vertical to angle C, which means C has to be also 130 degrees. Pretty cool? Now, I want you in the white area of your notes to please draw this. label this A, B, C, and this one is 15 degrees. I want you to find what A, B, and C are. Go ahead and do that. So using what we just learned from number 18, what's the first angle that's the easiest to start with? Angle A. So if this one's 15, what would the measure of angle A have to be? 15 what? Degrees. Good. Now looking at B, let's do B next. What does B have to be? Why do you think it's 165 degrees? Good, because this is 180 degrees, so 180 minus 15 gives me the 165. Now the last thing I can fill out is that now that I know this is 165, what does C have to be? Also 165 degrees. Any questions about how to do this? Good. Let's do number 19. Same idea, but now we're also putting in some complementary angles. See if you can figure out how to do this one on your own. I would again start with A. Find A first. Let's start with angle A. I told you that it is not 51 because although this is straight, this is not straight. So it's not vertical. Can't be 51. It's also not 58 because it has nothing to do with that 58. There's no relationship there. They're just like neighbor of a neighbor. No, there's nothing you can think about that. So there is another clue here, which is right here. What does that mean? So what's the measure of angle A?
90 degrees.
Good. A is 90 degrees. Now again, this is a straight line, which means the whole thing is 180 degrees. And this part's 90, so what's 180 minus 90? 90. The other side's also 90, right? This side is also 90, but part of it is 58, so the other part of that 90 would be?
32.
This part would be 32, because this whole side is 90. So 90 minus 58 would be 32. Those are complementary. There is one more angle we need to fill out. Any idea how to find that one? Gustavo.
This is how I do it. So I say, I put the, like if the line was in the middle, I subtract 90 from 51.
No. This one? Yes. So the 180 minus 51 makes 129. Very good. So let's talk about that again. A was 90 degrees because it's a right angle. It tells us with the little square. Then B and 58 are complementary because if this is 90, then the other side has to be 90. So that would make this one 32 because 90 minus 58 is 32. Then the bottom part, 51 and C, are supplementary. So that whole thing is 180, so 180 minus 51 would give me that 129. Any questions about number 19? Pretty cool now? You don't have to measure anything. You can just figure it out using relationships. Cool? Alright, number ones, what did you learn today? Ready? Share.